Well, I was told to smile more.
We are the Band of Sisters, 6 change makers who have written a book together, and we are getting the word out for our book, You Should Smile More, How to Dismantle Gender Bias in the Workplace, which we believe is a critical topic for workplaces today, and knowing how important culture is and creating inclusive culture to drive great business results. And we hope that women read our book. We hope that leaders, both men and women, read our book. We hope that witnesses who want to be allies read our book and take away the really practical tips on how to create a culture of inclusion.
How do you think organizations can build high-performance cultures that prioritize and promote diverse perspectives and experiences?
Well, I'd like to start on that one.
Please.
Not with the how, but starting with why it's so important. So you work so hard to get diversity up within your company, defined as broadly as possible. But the trick is to let people feel comfortable to offer their different perspectives, because we know a group of people brought to a problem will solve it faster and more creatively with more positive outcomes for the company if they can work together and voice different opinions and work together to find the best solution. So the culture becomes really important to, if you will, monetize the diversity and also create a culture where you can take advantage of the diversity.
We see so many companies who are focused on representation and making sure they're getting the numbers and getting the people at the table. And I love the chapter in our book, At the Table, Not in the Conversation, because it's one thing to get to the table, but it's another thing to create the culture where everyone feels like they can be heard and that their ideas are valued.
The culture is what it is, right? It's how decisions are made. It's what gets rewarded. So it's not what you, meaning the most senior people, think the culture is. It's actually what the culture, I sound like Yogi Berra, but the culture is what the culture is, not what you say it is.
Yeah.
Right. It's the sum of every little comment and action that happens from every employee. So that's why paying attention to all of that stuff, I think, matters so much. And also having a little bit, two things, having a long view, because this is a long process, and it's not an offsite, it's not a 3-day meeting. It's a day in, day out kind of process, and it's communicating.
How do you have meaningful conversations with people who may not fully understand the real implications of gender biases and how deep they can go?
Well, I don't know if this is a real deep example, but I actually had an example last night coming back into the city, and somebody was asking about the book, as I said, I was about to launch it, and we started talking about different examples, and one of the examples we started talking about is how many times a company's sales incentives or companies' incentives are very male-oriented, and we were talking about how many, and we all probably have 40 large men's golf shirts, and it just. And I said, that's the equivalent of, like, imagine, the guy that was driving the car was a man. I said, imagine you get, like, you're going to your company function and you open up the bag and it's a small women's yoga top. I mean, he started laughing so hard, I thought he was going to crash the car. And I'm like, that is the exact equivalent. That one situation of him having to think about how would we react if I got a small women's yoga top was just, but that happens to us every single day. So in some cases, bringing these examples to show how it would feel, I think, can really help lighten the situation and make a valid point.
What is one thing you wish more young female professionals knew? I'm going to start, because I have the card. I think one of the most important things to understand, and we talk about this in the book, is it kind of runs, it's a thread that runs through a lot of the examples, is really understanding how the financials work in your company and then how the power follows that. Because when you understand where power is, where decisions are made, it makes everything from presenting at a meeting to preparing for your review easier and better.
And we talked about this before, but companies have different levels of transparency around where they make money. For some, for good reasons, not wanting it to be public, whatever. But regardless, I think it's important when you enter a new job, you enter a new company, that you think about, what is the core product, what are the core values, and how do they win, how do they succeed? Obviously, financials are a part of it, but also what else is important to the company? It might be a spirit of innovation. It might be doing better for the environment at the same time that you're driving your revenue and your top line. So no matter what your role is, just understand, not everything, but a couple of the big buckets. It'll just help you do your job better and figure out where you fit in.
All right, sisters.
Okay.
What do you ultimately hope readers will take away with them when reading this book? I'm hoping it will be a catalyst for change and more inclusive work environments, so people move from just being inspired to action, and people take a look at what's happening in their organizations and say, wow, I think we can do something different to really amp up what we have in place now.
How do we invite our counterparts to also help dismantle the biases seen in the workplace?
So I think the way that we've written the book is to try and make it really practical and give actual language of what you can say, in a situation, before the situation, after the situation. And so we've tried to make it really practical, realizing that some of this stuff it's difficult for people and they don't have the language. So I think the notion of just being super, super practical to give people the language so that they don't have to figure it all out, I think is one of the things I'm most proud of about this book.
We all remember that great piece of advice. Looking back, was there a piece of advice you received that may have been good intention but misplaced? If so, how did you learn from that?
Well, I was told to smile more. So yeah, wrote a book.
I was told I smiled too much, that I was too accessible and too friendly, and that as I got more senior in the organization, I had to have a little bit of a barrier between me and the people. And I just think in general that was bad advice. I think part of my towering strength is being accessible and hopefully being a magnet that people want to follow you from a leadership perspective. So I think it was sort of old school, old world bad advice.
I was told I need to be seen breaking glass to get to the next level because all the leaders around me were table thumpers. And I thought, I don't think that's required. I get good results, but I didn't have the language and perspective then to push back on that.
How can other women find their band of sisters? How do you take the first step in finding a support system?
A lot of women do have support systems. We talk to a lot of younger women, and they have support systems. What I found is that they tend to have support systems that are of similar levels and might just be friends. And I think the more that you can reach into other parts of the company, up and down levels, it's going to broaden your it's going to just broaden your understanding, broaden your knowledge, and then make time. I think that's the number one thing, right? Is make time. And you're going to go through busy phases. You're not going to be able to do it, but bring the group together and be there for other people, and they'll be there for you.
The Band of Sisters experience for me started when I was looking for my next role. And I thought, gee, I'm going to reach out to the women that I most admire. I think I called Lori, I called C, and then we got all introduced again after years. And I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this more often? These women are amazing. And that sense of community and support was something that I just wish I had done more of.
I was going to add one thing, which is I think as we were writing this book, part of what I learned was a lot of the lessons that we talk about in the book, they're things that apply in your regular life as well. They're not only things that work in corporate America. And so I think for this, part of what I think about is as you are developing a band of sisters or, band of whatever, is be generous of spirit and go in with the intention to give more than you're going to get. And it'll end up being an incredible experience for you. But we all know who those people are at work who have lunch with people and whatever, and it's just about them. And I would argue if you really just go in and try and give more than you're going to get back, it's actually going to be really rewarding for everyone.